Okay, in this third and I think final video, I'm going to show you some of the nuances and tips that I promised about getting the most out of this. So here's where we left off in the last video, and you'll notice we cleaned up things like Temptations, Beaufil, and Sugar Hill Gang. We've still got these results that showed up in this threshold of between 1 and 0.7. So this match score is the approximate string matcher coming back and saying the match between Spirogyra and Spirogyra, as spelled there, was 82.82. So you can think of that roughly as an 82% similarity between those strings. So what you might wish to do is, let's suppose you get your work to a point where you're ready to see more results with even more matches. Well, you can lower this threshold even more, and let's say we take it down to 0.6 and recheck this. Okay, so I just paused and it completed again in about 30 seconds. And here you see, by reducing our threshold to 0.6, we start bringing in a lot more spurious potential matches here. But some of them are actually interesting, right? So, Prince and Fresh Prince are not the same. Boogie Boys and Beastie Boys are not the same. But here, it takes a match threshold of 0.6 to capture the Steve Miller Band, recorded as simply Steve Miller on this tape. So that's something you would have wanted to find, but you have to sift through a lot of spurious results before you can find that valid and interesting one. Same thing goes for Daryl Hall and John Oates. There may be places where they're properly called Hall and Oates and places where they're properly called Daryl Hall and John Oates. But for you to find these and consider them, you needed a match at 0.6 or greater. So when you get the sense that you're browsing a lot of repetitive and noisy data, this might be a good opportunity to turn these combos off. If I switch these to no and rerun this, it might be a more compact way for me to audit the potential matches here. And now I only see these matches one time. I don't see them listed over and over again by collection title. And then you can more quickly find things that you're interested in. And then, if you want to deal with them on a title by title basis, you can turn those filters back on, but at least you'll know what you're looking for then. So this brings me to another technique you might use, which is using not only this bottom threshold, the typical setting, but also adjusting the top threshold. So in this case, when we reduced from 0.7 to 0.6, we're still getting all the results that we had before that were at the 0.7 and above. So we have these from Earth, Wind & Fire and the Ohio Players and some of the others that were at that level. Imagine if we wanted to change this setting all the way down to 0.5 and do even more exploration. Well, we're going to get a lot of noise. But if we want to filter out all the stuff we've already looked at these higher levels, I could say, yeah, I've looked at everything from 0.6 and above. So don't show me anything at 0.6 and above. Show me things that are only between 0.5 and 0.6. So this is an interesting way for us to see only the new results at that new increment, if you will, that between 0.5 and 0.6. And to know that you're not checking any rows that you've already looked at. So in this case, maybe the good news is you browse things at the 0.5 to 0.6 level and you're able to confirm actually there's no results in that range that I really need to be concerned about, and I can have higher and higher confidence that I've got a cleaned up database. So let me go ahead and return our settings, and I'm going to finish up by showing you the various alternative functions that are implemented. In the first video, I showed you this drop down with the various comparison operations that I implemented, and I promised to tell you more about it later. We've mostly illustrated this functionality using the comparison of artists between the two sheets, but you can also compare title between the two sheets. And if I just go ahead and rerun that check, you'll see that in this little reduced data set that I have here, there's 134,000 potential operations. And in this case, you'll see that we're seeing matches in the title column. And in this small test data, I found Baby Tell Me Can You Dance showing up in 2 different titles between album, CD, and tape, so there may indeed be something interesting there. I might turn on the combos and take a closer look at that. We looked at artist and album CD, comparing that to itself. You can do the very same kind of operation within the other 3 things. So you can look at the artists as you find them in tapes. Quite a few combinations. Let me pause this for a bit. Okay, so as this is continuing to complete, you can already see a screen full of interesting results. As you know, there are many variations of Jackson, so that'll be an interesting thing for you to play with. If I go ahead and cancel this and just filter so far on what we've seen in Jacksons, you can see lots of variations of Jackson 5, Jackson 5, the Jackson 5, the Jacksons, and just keep in mind, as you do spelling corrections in complex examples like this, you might have to go several times making your corrections until you get all the circularities worked out, if you will. You know, if you change Jackson 5 on one side to the Jackson 5 on the other, you may see that same correspondence pop up again because it maybe runs the other way or propagated. You know, you propagate half your corrections one way, and then when you rerun, you'll find what remains and fix those misspellings, and then eventually you'll settle down and get them all knocked out. Unless you really think through, like we did with Sugar Hill Gang, then when we changed the spelling of one, that it left behind a variation, and so you refine that, correct it, and then you've finished all the possible combinations. So the tool helps you think through that, but you're always in the driver's seat in terms of which misspellings you want changed from what side to the other. Now, just to finish looking at these operations, I realize not all of these operations are equally valuable. Looking at record title in tapes is particularly uninteresting when you realize that most of the tapes have names that are date ranges and these sorts of things. Okay, here I just returned a list of results comparing artists in the artist column in tapes to the values in its own column there. And so in this example, chairman of the board, if I want chairman, M-E-N, to be the right spelling, I can make this change by selecting right, and regardless of how many times it shows up in tapes, it'll be fixed. And in this case, it was twice, but then it'll be done. Okay, so that just about covers everything I wanted to show you on this, and I hope it's been a helpful tour and demonstration of how to use this, and a good explanation of how to use the tool. Look forward to your feedback.